Yo people YouTube, I'm the Watch Idiot, and yes, you did read that title right, and it's not clickbait at all because I actually do mean what I said in that, and I do wish that I didn't review this watch over here, because when I first saw the SPB143 over here, when it was released, I instantly fell in love with it. But when I wore it for the first time, it wasn't as perfect as I thought it would be, but I still really love it. And as I'm spending more time with it, you know, I'm liking it even more and more. So now, because of this, I'm gonna be stuck with this conundrum in my head, just going back and forth. And it's not gonna end anytime soon. And to make things even more complicated, I mean, I got this 569P1 over here a few weeks ago, which is also, for me, the perfect Seiko. So now I have to think about whether or not I want this and all that stuff over here. And oh, so yeah, in this video, I'm gonna go over my loves and hates of this watch during this first week, and I guess I'm kind of thinking out loud with my decision process over here, so you guys feel free to chime in. And so yeah, before we get into it, a huge thank you to Ryan for lending this watch in to the channel, just because, I mean, I was absolutely taken aback by the generosity. I mean, he reached out to me after watching the 569P1 video over here, and he asked me, you know, if I wanted to check out his SPB143, and I was like, absolutely, because I've been wanting to see it for such a long time. So yes, once again, huge thank you to Ryan. Let's just get into it. Okay, so here are all the dimensions and specs, and everything is looking like a recipe for success. I mean, it's got a 40.1 millimeter case width. I mean, it's the 47.6 millimeter lug to lug, and a, I mean, slightly thick 13.9 millimeter thickness. And I was super excited for it, but in real life, it wears more like a 41 millimeter watch, just because the bezel and dial make up the whole 40 millimeters. But it's the extra thickness and the extra thickness of the bracelet alongside the very hefty weight that makes it wear like a larger watch compared to all my other similarly sized divers. I mentioned weight here, and it's a chunky one, because size for my 7.5 inch wrist, it comes in at 175 grams. And just for context, most of my other similarly sized divers and watches around this 39 millimeter size, they come in at 140 to 150 grams. My Black Bay Blue comes in at 138 grams, and my SKX007 with a steel bezel and a strap code oyster bracelet comes in at the same weight as this SPB at 175 grams. And that's a 42.5 millimeter watch with a 22 millimeter lug width and bracelet that weighs the same as this SPB, which is a 40 millimeter watch with a 20 millimeter bracelet. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about this a little bit later on. So obviously the radial brush of the bezel alongside the sunburst dial and the radially brushed case, just all that put together really catches the light amazingly and looks awesome. And it just puts a big smile on my face, you know, anytime I just go outside into the sun. It's awesome. And as for the actual dial, I love it just because of the sunburst finish that I just mentioned. It's really well done. The grain is really nice, and I actually happen to love this shade and tone of gray just because it's dark enough so as to, you know, not be too contrasty and not just be, you know, a light black, but also at the same time it is just fully gray. And yeah, onwards from over there, I mean, the indices are super clean. I love the shape of it, and it gives me that full-on Seiko vibe, which is what I would want from a watch like this. And you know, on the indices there is amazing lume, as one would expect from a Seiko, let alone one that costs over $1,000. So yeah, definitely happy on that end. Okay, so next up, I think I would describe the handset as pretty much perfect, I would say, just because the hands are perfectly shaped and the length of the hands are perfect. I mean, the hour hand reaches just nicely right below the indices, and then the minute hand reaches perfectly right to the bottom edges of all the minute markers. And once again, it's really well sized compared to everything else on the dial. But the biggest plus point about this, about these hands, is the finishing, and that's the half and half polish and brush finish. And I think it's an absolute stroke of genius, just because the way it looks in the sun or pretty much any light is so unlike anything else, and it's super sharp and super crisp, and it goes right down the middle. And actually that helps with legibility, because there's never going to be a lighting situation where you're not going to be able to see one of the two halves on the hand. So yeah, I mean, it's just perfect in every way, I would say. So the case is a wonderful thing. Case sides are brushed very nicely, just the way they are on the top. And there is the wonderful, wonderful bevel running alongside the top. And yeah, I mean, I've said it time and time again, I absolutely love it when watches have this little detail. So now onto the bezel, and yeah, the bezel feel is really exceptional. I mean, it's much closer to a Marine Master 300 in terms of feel than it is to a, you know, traditional sub $1,000 Seiko, which is amazing. And actually, let's just listen to it right now. So yeah, I love that the bezel insert is steel, despite people always wanting ceramic no matter what. I love it just because we're able to get that radial brush on it because it's steel, and I think that adds such an awesome extra element of visual interest that plays with the light once again, and it just looks awesome. It looks really different, and it just makes me so happy. And in terms of the actual bezel itself, it's got a coin edge, and it's exactly the way I would have wanted it to be. It's crisp, well finished, and it's polished. It's very grippy as well, and yeah, it's just exactly the kind of bezel that this watch needs. So yeah, this is something that Seiko gets right on pretty much every diver sports watch that they put out, and that's leaving a huge space in between the spring bar and the inside of the case. And in this particular case, it's 3 millimeters of space with regular spring bars, and it's 2.5 millimeters with the normal Seiko Fat Boy spring bars. And yeah, I mean, that pretty much means that you can put any strap you could possibly imagine on it and it'll fit, and which is something that cannot be said, unfortunately, for a lot of other divers and sports watches. And yeah, I mean, I think that's an amazing thing, just because the gray dial black bezel combination is an absolute strap monster. And yeah, it looks seriously good on any strap pretty much, and you know, ranging from traditional NATO straps to rubber straps to, you know, even leather straps and leather NATO straps, which are sometimes a little bit too thick for watches. And actually, this Strapmonsterability, which is now a word, is a bit more important in this particular situation, just because it really links to one of my main dislikes about this watch, and that is the bracelet. So yeah, the main thing about this SPB143 that I don't like is the bracelet, and a lot of it has to do with just how close they were to getting this bracelet absolutely spot on. I mean, they did a lot of stuff to improve on all the common complaints that we have. It does feel pretty solid and pretty nice. I just think that the bracelet is just a little bit too thick, and as a result too heavy, just because, like I said before, it's a 40 millimeter watch with 20 millimeter bracelet that weighs the exact same as a 42.5 millimeter SKX on a 22 millimeter bracelet. So yeah, as a result, the sensation of weight is much more, and I felt this pretty much immediately, even before I did all the numbers and actually weighed it. And I also noticed that my wrist was kind of getting tired, you know, after wearing it for a while. The tiredness that comes from a heavy watch isn't necessarily a bad thing inherently, just because it's something that happens, and something that I expect with my Marine Master 300 or my big Islander Samurai. But when I want to wear a 40 millimeter watch that's supposed to be easygoing and everyday-y, I don't want to deal with that tiredness. I don't want to have to think about it. And the final nail in the coffin, which is unfortunate, was that there is a gap on the side of the end link in the case. And at first I thought that this was just on this particular watch, but then I remembered that I saw it on some other pictures. So what I did is I went back to some of the reviews, and you know, lo and behold, there it was. In James Stacy's review photos, you can see the gap. Same thing with the Watch Gecko's photos, Warren Wallon's photos, and actually, I found myself on the Seiko website, and I was looking over there at the SPB143, and I noticed that their main photo over there actually shows the gap perfectly. I mean, even more than the photos, which is, I guess, very refreshing honesty, I guess? I don't know. I mean, but either way, it's proven that they know it's there. So yeah, you might just say, wear it on a strap. And I mean, yeah, that's valid, and it's a good option just because it is a strap monster and it does look great on straps. But in the end, you can't get this watch, the gray dial black bezel, without the bracelet. So you end up having to pay $200 extra for the watch, for the bracelet. So me being a bracelet guy, and if I'm going to be paying for the bracelet, I want to be able to make use of that $200 bracelet that I bought. So yeah, I mean, after spending $1,200 on a watch, I mean, I wouldn't want to have to not wear the watch just because it just doesn't work, or doesn't work as well as it should. Yeah. Okay, never mind. And another big factor that is playing into my decision-making process is the fact that I got the SNE 569P1 a few weeks ago, and I am absolutely in love with it. Absolutely love it. And, you know, as I talked about a lot in my in-depth review. So yeah, I mean, the SPB might have just come in at the wrong time. I mean, maybe I would have loved the SPB much more after what's looking to be, you know, my very, very long honeymoon with my wonderful little gray bezeled SNE. But on the flip side too, I mean, it could very well be that I, you know, ended up, you know, stumbling upon and unexpectedly finding my perfect Seiko in the SNE, and that I just have to come to terms with, you know, with the fact that, you know, the SPB, you know, as perfect as I thought it may be, may only be perfect on paper, and that it's just not meant to be, and that it's, you know, that I just have to let it go. Wow, wow, that made me a little bit sad thinking about all that in that way. But anyway, yeah, in the end, I do think that sticking with the SNE is the right thing to do, just because as much as I love wearing the SPB, I mean, I just feel just so much like genuine happiness, and it just makes me smile whenever I see the SNE. And I think it's just that it's so unassuming, but so perfect at the same time. I mean, I love it. I mean, if you can't tell already. So yeah, I mean, let me know what you think, you know, I should do, or maybe what you would do if you were in my position, or if you are already in my position, what you think you're gonna do. But anyway, onwards to who I think this watch is for. And yeah, I mean, I think that this can be bought by pretty much anyone. So yeah, I mean, if you like smaller divers and smaller watches, and you like the look of it, and you maybe want a slightly larger, slightly beefier watch, you know, that you can still wear all the time, you know, absolutely go for it. It's amazing. And also, if you happen to like wearing only larger watches, like 42 and above, you know, and you just, once again, like the look of the SPB, you know, I still think that it has enough, you know, visual presence alongside, you know, enough heft to make it a smooth transition to a smaller watch, just because you're not going to look down at your wrist and just see, you know, a tiny little thing, and you're going to be able to feel it on your wrist. So yeah, there you have it. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about the watch down in the comments, because it's a great watch, and I know that some of you watching probably have some variation of this watch. So, you know, I would love to hear from you guys what you think about the watch and what your experience has been like. And of course, do go ahead and hit the like button, because it helps the channel immensely. And if you want to see more of my videos, check out my other videos, and then hit the subscribe button and the notification bell also, just so you know what's going on. It also helps the channel once again. So yeah, until the next video, good day.